People assume that time is a strict progression from cause to effect, when in reality, from a non-linear, non-subjective perspective, it's more of like a big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. Today I'm going to talk to you about that quote, who said it, and why understanding it will fundamentally change your relationship with technology. I've been a fan of science fiction my whole life. I have really enjoyed looking at time in different ways. I love all the science fiction movies. I read science fiction avidly, and time and space fascinate me. You may not be that person. You may actually find that space and time are kind of abstract, and you're thinking to yourself right now, what does this have to do with me? Everything. Why is that? Well, because today we live in a growing digital age. And as a communication professor, I watch how communication relates in different formats in different areas. In communication, we call this channels. We have different channels that we communicate. We communicate, one channel might be a phone. You make a phone call. Another channel might be an email. Another channel might be a text message. And all these different channels not only convey messages, but they affect how we communicate. In fact, Marshall McLuhan coined the term, the medium is the message, way back when, and he didn't realize how right he was. So what does this have to do with time and space? Well, when we communicate within time and space, digital communication actually changes the way we relate to time and space. So, some of you may have recognized that quote coming from Doctor Who. Science fiction TV show from Great Britain, started in 1963. Doctor Who is a Time Lord that travels in his big blue box, a space box, that's shaped just like a 1963 police box. This is a show that's been on the air pretty much almost sequentially, except for a short period of time, for 50 years. The Doctor is someone I met when I was first 8 years old. I started watching this show, and I was lucky enough to have that kind of hop in and out of my life. I remember when I attended college, my debate coach actually was a huge Doctor Who fan, and he used to have Doctor Who viewings in his bat cave, which was really his living room, and we'd watch Doctor Who theater and be fascinated by the Doctor. One thing that I want to convey to you is the 3 lessons that I learned from Doctor Who. Even starting as an 8-year-old, I think these ideas have started to percolate. The 3 things I've learned from Doctor Who about time and space and the digital age. First, technology is what allows us to make the jump from an analog linear experience to a digital one. Second, when we have that jump, we defy the rules of time and space. And third, we have to then, therefore, consider the consequences of defying those rules. And what does that mean for our future? So first up, let's talk about analogic communication, which is linear communication. When we experience linear time, we've been actually doing that for thousands and thousands of years. In fact, that's what humans have always done. Human communication from the get-go has always been linear. And it's only recently with digital communication that we've been able to make the jump to a nonlinear experience. I'll explain what that means. Many of us in this room, okay, some of us in this room, might remember cassette tapes, right? Thinking back to your mixtapes maybe you made for some friends, anyone? And you'd play these tapes and you'd start in the middle and you'd go, oh boy, I want to hear the beginning of that song again. What did you have to do? Press rewind and wait. You get through halfway through the cassette tape and you're suddenly like, I want to hear that first song again. You've got to rewind and wait. That's linear time, folks. VHS are the same way. What's digital time? Digital time is what we do with CDs, DVDs, DVRs. We can start and stop anywhere. It's so funny how easily we become really comfortable with these technologies that we're not even aware at what that does to our psyche. If we can just jump in time anywhere we want in the mediums that we're watching, we start to expect that we're doing that. And that really is what time travel is about. That's me. And that's me in analog time. I remember this picture being taken. I remember where I was. I remember what I was doing. And it's very fixed time in linear point in time. This is also me. This is my avatar. This is my digital me. This me is a lot less defined. The definitions of start and stop are less fluid. Also, it's a little less fleshed out. The other thing that's interesting about the avatar, digital me, is that I can create an identity online, and I can change that identity based on what I want people to think about me. In communication, we call this impression management. And I can create impression management online and create identities. In fact, there's a WikiHow page that is dedicated to how to make your Facebook identity look awesome. And it does all sorts of things I won't go into because they're ridiculous. What are the advantages of digital time? Let's talk about breaking these rules. This is the second rule I learned from Doctor Who. The doctor can be in multiple places at once. He can be in Pompeii, and then he can be in World War II. He can be in ancient Egypt. He can be all over the place, different planets, different times, with his big blue time box. We can do that too. Right now, as you're sitting here, you may actually have a Twitter message that someone is responding to. Right now, as you sit here, you might have a Facebook status that somebody's responding to. You are present in multiple places right now. The other thing that this teaches us is this concept of digital immortality. This is something we're only just starting to understand. When we put a message out into the ethersphere, it doesn't go anywhere. You put something out when you're 20 years old, you could probably do a Google search when you're 50 and find it. We live immortally as digital beings. And one of the things that this is a consequence is that we now are starting to see people have like tribute pages up there, right? When somebody passes away, my uncle recently passed away, and his Facebook page is still there. And on his birthday, people posted messages to him to tell him that they still remembered him. And I had a student pass away, and his Facebook page is still up. And on his birthday, or on the anniversary of his death, I remember going up and posting some messages along with family and friends. So we become immortal in a bizarre way in the digital universe. The other thing we do is we can break and stop and start times when we want to start and stop things, right? For example, you have a show going on right now, maybe, as you're watching this. You might be recording it somewhere, right? And so you can watch it whenever you want. That's one of the beauties of digital time. Unfortunately, we're going to talk about the consequences and some of the harms that come from digital time as well. One of them is we're increasingly fragmented. And we're increasingly connected with more and more people, but in less intimate ways. You may have lots of friends. You may have 5,000 friends on Facebook or some social media network, but those aren't the same types of friendships you have in a face-to-face environment, are they? So the doctor teaches us this because he's actually kind of a lonely guy. He's pretty isolated. He's the last of his kind. And he makes connections with his companions and with people he meets, but they're not long-living connections. They don't connect and resonate in the way that a face-to-face analog linear time, because he's in digital time. He jumps all over the place. He never sits still enough to be in that linear time path. The other thing that the consequence is that it is exhausting, right? Think about it. If you have to manage all of these social messages, you have to check your email, you have to check your phone. I had a friend recently tell me that she was trying to organize an event, and instead of in the old days, you could pick up the phone and leave a voicemail message. Now she has to, with every single person participating in this event, she has to send them an email, a text, a phone message, and she has to try to find them somewhere on campus, right? Because people don't have consistent ways to be reached, so it's exhausting. And the other thing is, we really can't be in more than one place at a time. We are not present enough. And that's one of the casualties of digital communication. I feel this myself. I find myself very easily distracted. You know, in 2000, the average time attention span was 12 seconds. By 2012, it was down to 8. Do you know what the attention span of a goldfish is? Yeah, 9 seconds. We have lost our attention span to the point that goldfish can pay attention better than we can. Right? And it's because we can't actually pay attention to a text while we're paying attention to a lecture, while we're listening to the radio, while we're trying to talk to a friend, right? We really can't. We think we can, but the more you multitask, the worse you get at it. There's actually a study that shows that, which is really bad news for me because I'm a chronic multitasker and I really need help on that. But one of the things I will tell you too is that this is a bigger problem for education. So to answer the question before us today, what is our future? we have to consider how this is going to impact education, and in particular, our children. I have 2 young children, 6 and almost 9, and they are digital natives. And they spend more time in virtual land than I did as a child. And I think that it is deeply affecting their psyches, and I think we need to consider what this means as educators. 2 things. First, we need to meet digital natives where they are. We have to design our curriculum so that they have a way to access that point, right? One of the things I do is I work for Cengage Learning and I design curriculum, and I have to think about how can we design this curriculum to best meet 21st century students. They crave digital experience. But the second problem is that they don't often understand the boundaries of digital time, and what they do is they will often say things and share things online environments that they would never share in a face-to-face environment, right? They'll go online and share these incredibly intimate details, and then in class be embarrassed to share anything. And I'll often think to myself, well, you should have thought about that last night when you share all those intimate details, but you're not willing to talk about the text in class. Very odd. So what do we need to do? We need to think about how to be present. Thich Nhat Hanh said, "The breath is a vehicle that brings us the body back to our present reality." So I want you to think for a minute how often you're present, because it's only when we're present that our future self will be thankful. Thank you.